All right, we are going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. Sorry about the delay. We're ready to get started. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have Derek on the phone with us, and Kirk is unavailable today, and we're super excited to have Mark with us today, and Lisa and Alicia and everybody. So we'll go ahead and ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
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 The agenda has been approved. We'll now take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions about the consent agenda? No questions on the updated personnel report or anything?
What is the declaration for alternative authorization? I read through it and I was kind of like, speed on this.
Mark, do you want to, or Lisa, who?
Yeah, I'm gonna just, Lisa prepared these for a
Okay.
few of our employees.
Just kind of synopsis of
So,
what.
pretty much there's some areas where those teachers have to work through some certification pieces. Once they finalize that, then, they'll get their final certification for the state. So it's just giving us that permission to allow them to work through the process on that alternate authorization before they get their final certificate.
Sounds good.
Any other questions or discussions about the consent agenda? Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor of accepting the consent agenda, say aye.
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 The consent agenda passes. We'll now move into discussion items. The best news that we have today is that we have a full staffed admin team. We're so excited to have Mark with us and permanently, and Alicia with us permanently. Not me. This is our the other Alicia. And Lisa, we've filled all our district admin positions. So we're excited to work together as a board and rock and roll and get some stuff done. That strategic plan section is part of the good news. So our strategic plan usually goes 5 years typically. And we're about ready to start that process again, which is a lot of work. And it takes a lot of involvement from the community and the board and our staff. So that being said, there is training available since we do this every day, right? And totally know what we're doing. So I would kind of like to defer to Mark to see if you have trainings that you've used in the past or what you feel would be best for our district as far as board superintendent training as we work forward on our strategic plan or
Yeah, you
anything,
bet.
if you guys support that or okay with that.
Yeah, and what we've done in the past, I know that the district here has used it, it was Advanced Ed, it's Cognia now through that district accreditation. We've used that before, but probably the best training we could get around here would be through ISBA. They have a lot of training, and there's training that's provided that the state provides funding for. In addition, IASA, which is the School Administrators Association. I would probably start looking at those two, probably with the school board reaching out to ISBA and I reaching out to IASA and seeing how those could work in concert as we start moving forward. But that would be those would be the organizations we'd look at first.
Okay. I will delegate that to Kirk if everyone's okay with that. So I'll put a bug in his
I
ear.
know we would.
Okay. So I'll just kind of give a note to Kirk or to Chairman Adams to follow up with the ISBA and just you, Superintendent Gee, and see what they have, and you guys can kind of coordinate that together.
That'd be perfect.
That works?
Yep.
Okay.
Great. And I think that'll be great too for us, just being able to know, for me, coming in new, getting to the same kind of training that you're getting as a board so that we're all kind of talking the same language.
And you guys have had some basic training, but really there hasn't been a ton, just that basic initial one. So I think we're all due for a refresh and work towards that together.
Sounds perfect.
Things should be good. Okay, the next on our discussion items is the ESSER funds. And I don't know, Lisa, if you had prepared comments on that or if Mark,
I
Have that?
prepared
Okay.
some comments on that. But primarily just reviewing with the board some of the things with ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. As the state was making those available, it was something that we wanted to make sure that they put a few stipulations in, and I wanted to review with the board, not knowing what you've already been.
do you guys
Aware
know
of.
what the ESSER funds are?
I do know
Do you know what
somewhat.
the
I've
ESSER
been
funds are,
reading.
Jake? Okay.
Okay.
So maybe start with a brief overview and then we
Perfect.
can go, and then for everyone else. too,
Yeah,
that might not
perfect.
know.
So the ESSER funds are the funds that were generated through the different COVID relief acts. So back in the spring, we received funds, and in the school setting, the ESSER, and I couldn't even tell you what ESSER stands for right now, except that that's the funds from those relief acts that were directed to school districts. ESSER 1 was back in the spring. ESSER 2 was ratified by the United States Congress in December. And then ESSER 3 came as part of the package that was approved in February, March,
Yeah.
right in that
Yeah.
range. So when, and the state is looking at ways to leverage some of those funds and make them be able to work for things that, that a lot of school districts were encountering or themselves at the state. And so when in January, the state reinstated or didn't approve some of the holdbacks that were originally slated in May of last year. The governor had ordered a number of holdbacks. Some of those the governor had the authority to do just right of his own authority, and some needed ratification by the legislature. When the legislature came in to meet in August, they didn't address any of those, and so it was left for the regular session in February. Those funds, those that were needed to be approved by the legislature did not get approved. And so what that meant was we needed to go back and say, okay, here's the funds that were coming in as if those holdbacks had never happened. So the school district redid their budget at the time, and the state then said, because this is all happening, and because all these ESSER funds are coming in, we're going to cut what we call discretionary dollars. That's dollars that come in for the payments of gas bills and, anything that's not really directed towards salaries kind of fits under that same umbrella. But when they cut that, they said, we're going to make sure you have access to ESSER dollars, and this would be the ESSER 2 approved in December, dollars, enough so that you can cover that cut. And so they authorized the first half of ESSER 2 and a couple of other things, other funds they had to make it so that we kind of were maintained or were made whole as a district. And that it accounted for about 52% of the ESSER 2 funds that were allocated to our district. ESSER 2, then on July 1st, the rest of those ESSER 2 funds were made available to our district. As of July 1st, the ESSER 3 funds were also made available. But one thing that I wanted to make sure that the board was aware of, that when the state authorized the ESSER 3 dollars, they didn't make it, they made one stipulation, and it has to do with another acronym that they call PISF, P-I-S-F. And that's the Public Instruction Stabilization Fund. So the Public Instruction Stabilization Fund is a fund that was established back in the mid-2000s as a way of stabilizing school districts' allocations from the state. Because previously, in July, we get a scheduled payment for every school year in July. It's the last one that comes. So we got one in July of this year. That was it was the last payment and it's kind of where they shore up all the edges, things that got adjusted, changed. We take care of that in the July payment. Previous to the stabilization fund being in place, the state would then say, okay, we as a state department have gone over by this much. So we take from all the districts equally and make that happen. Well, when the stabilization fund was created, it was to make sure that that didn't have to come from the districts every year. So if there was an amount that the state went over, they would pull that from the stabilization fund instead of the districts, and that way districts could plan and budget more accurately. An example of when that would be pulled is when, like, the advanced opportunities. Advanced opportunities is to pay for those dual credits and different things that students take, but there's really no way for the state to know for sure how many of those credits are going to be taken. And so if it goes over, they pull from the stabilization fund. With ESSER $3, they have planned that over the next 3 years, or the next 3 July payments, because that's how long we have to spend the ESSER $3, that they are not going to pull from the stabilization fund to make up any difference. So as school districts, we have to make sure that we are allocating for, or planning to use some of those ESSER dollars to cover any cut that might come to that July payment. And so and I'm gonna just look at Alicia here and verify with about 8% of the discretionary that they recommend we hold. Is that correct? So 8% of our discretionary dollars, they are recommending that each year we make sure that we have that from our ESSER dollars just to be able to cover. And it could be more and it could be less, but that's them looking back at what previous payments have had to be, and kind of averaging that out through the last 5 years. So more than anything, over the next month, Alicia and I will be working together to create kind of a summary of what ESSER dollars have been spent on and what funds we have remaining. And there's some of those that are tied directly to specific technology pieces. We want to make sure what we're trying to do is get an overview of all of that, so that as a board, here's all the funds that we have, and that can then be communicated to both our staff and our community as well, that here's what we have, and then we can, as we're looking at our strategic plan, we can strategically plan on how to use the remaining funds that are available.
So just one question, remind
Yes.
me, Alicia, we didn't budget any SR funds, right? Because we said we wanted to table that. If we have to do any type of amended budget, or these are the funds we don't budget.
There is one fund, ESSER 3, that we're directed to where we don't budget, we just expend and report.
Okay,
But ESSER 2, we do need to budget.
so if we needed to do an amended budget, or do you foresee that? I mean, we kind of, when we approved or discussed our budget, knowing that we could have
Yeah.
some changes,
Yes.
would that need to be done by September?
Not necessarily by a specific time.
Okay.
The earlier the better, though.
Okay,
As we're moving through those ESSER funds. And honestly, if we looked at it and it was just an ESSER fund adjustment that we needed to make, we could make that just with the ESSER funds and not necessarily have to do a full-blown amended budget.
okay,
But if what we're strategically planning to do causes us to change other things within our budget, then we would need to do that amended budget. So if there's a way that we can look at those ESSER dollars it comes in and we pay it out directly to this piece and it doesn't touch anything else within our budget, we can do that without an amended. It will take an action by the board to say, we're going to use it for this item. But once it's done by the board, it carries with it all that we need. So
okay.
that's one of those things that we'll just have to look at as we start addressing our strategic plan. But we plan for the August meeting to have that summary to you as a board, so that one, you all know kind of where we're at, and we can communicate that out to our patrons as well.
Thank you.
I think that'd be helpful. There's a lot of confusion as to what passed and when, and if it didn't, and what you can and can't use it for.
Right.
So I think that would be helpful. You guys have any more questions? Derek, do you have any questions or anything? about those SR funds?
No, I do not.
Okay, do you guys have anything? Okay, well, we'll go ahead and move into our action items. Item A, we just have a couple of things. There was student and parent handbooks. The one that we didn't have added with the rest of them was the athletic handbook. And we can do discussion first and then we'll take a motion if you guys had anything on there, any questions or concerns.
The only thing I don't like in there is the pay to play, because I feel like we need to address that maybe. That's the only thing I don't like in there.
Like that it's written in the handbook or that it's,
Yeah, I just think we need to relook at that and that number.
when we budgeted and did our budget, Alicia, we still budgeted with a pay to play, right? But not for the middle school, just for the high school. And was the amount 150 or was it 100?
It's 150.
Oh, goodness. I have to look at my notes.
I think it's 150 in the
It is
book.
It is 150 is what we left.
So this was updated, just so you guys know. The only parts of the handbook that changed, he highlighted in yellow for you so you could see the changes.
Everything
And
else
so
is the
that
same.
language for pay to play was.
Is already in there
Yeah,
then.
that
Okay.
was, and that was after we adjusted it last year. We started at one spot and then made that adjustment. So this is the adjusted amount
Okay,
from last year.
gotcha.
And if, as Alicia and I were reviewing the budget and we were looking at an amended budget, that would be something that could be revisited as well.
Okay,
The only thing that I wanted to bring up and get feedback on is in the yellow section on page 5, number 6. It says, if parents believe there is not an injury, they must sign the release of the prevention liability form. Our athletic trainer will then not check the student athlete regarding the injury. However, playing time is still a coach's decision. I would like to propose or get discussion on removing that last sentence that says, however, playing time is still a coach's decision, because I feel like that implies or tries to imply, I don't know, there's a whole nother section that discusses playing time. And I just feel like that sentence needs to be taken out. Because I sometimes feel like if the athletic trainer said, you have a concussion and the doctor clears them and says, no, you don't. And the coach is like, well, the athletic trainer said you did, so we're going to go with the athletic trainer. So I just think that playing time is just, it's discussed in its own section. And I think to make that other part cleaner, we should just take out that last sentence.
Wouldn't a doctor's note trump an athletic trainer?
It should, but the way this is written, I feel like it just adds a little
Cushion there?
for the athletic trainer, not for the medical professional.
And is the athletic trainer actually an athletic trainer, or is she just somebody who's paid by St.?
She's certified as an
She's
athletic
certified,
trainer.
okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
But that's a big difference between someone who has a medical license.
Yes. Transfer bears no interest in the sign and release of-
So it could just be how I interpret it, but I just wanted your guys' feedback.
Well, I know IHSA takes concussions pretty dang seriously.
So if I'm understanding this right, is this a progress that happens? Like if the parents go to a doctor and they still don't think there's an injury afterwards, or is this, I choose not to take my kid to the doctor, I don't think there's an injury?
That's a good question.
Do you know if it's written as a progression or if it's written as?
The way that this works is, so we have the athletic trainer on site. And so if they do the evaluation and let's say they don't agree with the evaluation, then it is to allow that room that if you want to take your child to a doctor, that doctor will always trump the athletic director or
Sure.
the athletic trainer's decision. If you choose as a parent that you don't want to go see the doctor, then that's where it kind of outlines these steps. So then if you don't agree with the athletic trainer's decision and you don't want to go to a doctor, here's the process in which we need to follow.
That's just liability,
It is.
And that's why they just sign the form that
which
says.
is okay with me.
Yeah, that's funny, is somebody is that passionate about running their kid despite what people that know what they're talking about are.
And I think what Alicia's saying too is that the part about the coach stepping in and having that.
Discretion.
Yeah, that shouldn't be here because the allowance for playing time is addressed in another section within the handbook anyway, that the coach has that discretion. So doesn't need to, putting it there almost puts a liability on the coach, that the coach
Yes.
would then say, well, despite all of these things, I'm going to go ahead and play because it says that the coach has that authority to do so. And keeping those two things separate,
I was gonna say, doesn't that kind of contradict your liability?
right?
Pretty much.
So yeah, that, I just felt like that last sentence just didn't need to go there, but
No, I think I think take it out.
And would that be starting, I just wanna make sure so we get it clear for the notes, just remove however, at the however.
Uh-huh,
we would add
that
this
would be,
before.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Is that, did you have
Yeah,
any
no,
concerns or anything with that?
that's how I felt. It pulling that out takes a liability off the coach because the coach doesn't.
Yes.
There's not something in there that's a parent could say, well, you have the right, coach, just go ahead and say,
Yes.
because if there's medical, if there are medical professionals and trainers saying it needs to be one way and the coach goes against that, then it is on the coach, and this opens it up for that if we don't take it out.
Yeah, I think so.
Is there anything
Okay.
else you guys had questions on or anything?
No, that probably rang a bell in my head, but I just didn't catch it. I didn't like it, but
That's okay. So we'll go ahead and take a motion for the handbooks, and you'll have to include that change with the motion.
Let me go back in here. I move to approve the athletic handbook as proposed with the exception of removal of the final sentence in section 6 that says, however, playing time is still a coach's decision.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Concerns? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. We don't have any further action items, so at this time, we will go into executive session. So we'll ask everyone to leave, and then when we're done with in executive session, we'll invite you back in if you want to come for the remainder of the meeting.
Sorry, it's hot outside.
Gina, do I do this now
We need
Should've
to.
got you guys some water.
Do executive
Yeah.
session.
first?
Okay.
Okay,
So do I make do I need?
we
to
can
get
wait for just a second. Yeah, you'll need to read
The whole thing.
the whole thing.
Mhm.
And you can go ahead and do that real quick.
I'll do it. Okay.
Is that okay?
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I make a motion that per Idaho Code 74-206B to consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of, or to hear complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent or public school student. Or discussion of
You can read that.
employees 072621A.
We'll go in by roll call. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Second?
Thank you.
Trustee Dempsey?
Yep.
Trustee Wagner?
Yes.
Trustee McConkey?
Yes.
Trustee Moore?
Yes.
We are now in executive session.
Did we lynch her?
Are we out yet or are we?
We are out. So we'll go ahead and take a
Okay.
motion to come out of executive session.
I move to come out of executive session.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 We are now out of executive session. There's no action that needs to be taken at this time. So we'll move to hearing of signing visitors. When everyone signed in today, this is a new form that we have. It talks about the guidelines for involvement in a school board meeting. I appreciate it just because it's very clear. Hopefully it's welcoming and reassuring to anyone who does want to speak in one of the board meetings. Just give some direction on how that works. And then this part comes to the chairman
Yeah,
so that they'll know, so they can introduce you at the end of the meeting. Did we have anyone signed in to speak today?
No.
Okay, so having no one signed in to speak, we'll go ahead and take a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. And he's out, so we're adjourned. Thank you.